Hello and welcome to RV Advisors All Things RV Podcast. I am your host, Kathy Conrad. I've been enjoying the RV lifestyle for 5 years and I love helping new RVers realize their RV dreams. This podcast is about RV education, resources, adventures, and the amazing people who love RVing. It is also about discovering the freedom RVers experience, the connection with nature we are all so grateful for, and how RVing enriches our lives. On this podcast, you can expect us to talk about all things RV, including the good stuff, the challenging stuff, and everything in between. So, join us weekly and enjoy the lineup of guests we have in store for you. Hey friend, are you ready to get your RV party started and accelerate your RV learning experience? Click the link below to obtain details and pricing on my 8-week program. I am offering my podcast listeners up to 20% off if you purchase in the month of May. Don't miss this opportunity to have 8 90-minute one-on-one sessions with me loaded with great information to help you navigate the path to hitting the road with confidence in your new RV. I can't wait to work with you and help you to create the best RVing experience possible. Hello RVers, and did you catch that title? I'm sorry for what I said when you were backing up the trailer. So this comes from, there's a decorative pillow you can buy to put in your rig, and that's what it says on the pillow. I'm sorry for what I said while you were backing up the trailer. So it's kind of a hot topic, I guess, and you know, if you've spent any time camping, RV camping, you see lots of different things happen when people are backing up. And I'm here to share some tips with you that I have found very helpful for backing into spaces. So originally when we bought our rig, I hadn't really given a lot of thought to doing the towing and backing up and that sort of thing, but I was going to kind of just leave that up to my husband, but I got to thinking about it. And, you know, if there was an emergency and I had to do it, I would much rather already know how to do it than to have to learn on the spot. So that's my advice. You know, learn how to tow, learn how to hook up, unhook, do all those things, because if you ever are in a situation where you don't have a choice, it would be better to already be very familiar with doing those things. So if I can do it, you can do it. You know, you got to step outside your comfort zone sometimes, but it's just a matter of learning the skill and practicing. So we went to a parking lot on a Sunday with the trailer. My husband brought cones, and it was a Sunday. The store was closed. It was a furniture store, so a huge parking lot. So there was plenty of space. And he spent a couple hours with me, showing me, giving me the techniques and setting up cones in different scenarios to help me to maneuver and to get comfortable with maneuvering and for the feel of which way you have to go for what. And it was so worthwhile. And my husband's a great teacher and he's very patient, so I'm lucky. So by the end of that couple of hours, I felt like I was had the skills that I needed. I felt like I knew what I needed to do, and I felt actually very comfortable doing it. So then it just was, practicing from then on out. But there's a few techniques that he taught me that I want to share with you today because I found them very helpful, and also some of the things I learned. And it just makes the whole experience easier. So besides hand positioning on the steering wheel, which we'll talk about in a second, there's having really good, clear, concise verbal directions that are consistent. Because when you're traveling together, one person needs to be the spotter and one person will do the backing up. And the other good thing about learning how to do the backing up in that is that you can share the driving if you're going on a long trip and one person's getting tired, the other person can drive. So it's just a good thing for many reasons to learn how to do. So knowing how to give good, clear, concise directions, and what is the responsibility of the spotter, because it's an important role to play and it can prevent a lot of damage to a rig if you run into something that you weren't looking out for. So you can do it on your own, and I have done it on my own. And what I would encourage you, if you're traveling by yourself and towing and you don't have a spotter, when you arrive, pull up, get out, take a look at the spot, take a look of the area where you have to maneuver your tow vehicle, take a look at what obstacles may be around, and familiarize yourself, and then get out and look as many times as you need to. It doesn't matter how many times you have to do it. The most important thing is that I know that nobody wants to damage their rig. You just don't. So take your time, get out and look as many times as you need to. If you're lucky enough to have a spotter, then when you arrive, same thing, hop out, take a look at the site, get an idea for how level it is, get an idea where the obstacles are, which may include trees. It may be logs or large boulders that are used for delineators for the site to separate your site from the person next to you. If there are hookups, then there's going to be a sewer hookup that's in the ground. There's going to be an electrical pedestal, which you have to watch out for, which would include, as you're backing in, that if you have a slide, that you have room to roll the slide out without hitting the pedestal. So you have to keep that in mind. And also, you have to watch both sides, the back and above you, because if there are trees, especially if they have very stiff branches, you want to really watch out for that you don't damage your roof or your air conditioner or any of the other items that might be on top of your roof. So it's an important job to do. And I will tell you that if you can arrive in the daylight, that's the best way to go. Some spots can be really tricky to get into during the day. That's bad enough, but if it's a really dark campground, it's at least doubly as difficult and stressful. And we actually have these puck lights, they're emergency lights, that I kind of have set down the rule. I'm not doing it anymore at nighttime. It's just, I don't like doing it. But if we had to, we can line up those puck lights on the sides of the site to at least give the driver some idea of where they're at in the site. And so that's just a suggestion or an idea if you really don't have a choice but to arrive in the dark. Make it a little lighter and easier for yourself if you can. And so once you've kind of assessed the site, what we do is we communicate over our cell phones. And if we don't have a signal, which is not unusual, then we carry walkie-talkies and we can do it that way. The spotter is the verbal cues that I have found to be really effective. When you are starting to back in, this is what my husband taught me. Instead of having your hands at the top of the steering wheel and looking back, and you want the back of the truck to go to the left so that the back of the trailer will go to the right. So you have to stop and think about that process, that they're going opposite directions. But if you put your hands at the bottom of the steering wheel, and if you want the back of you don't have to think about the truck now, right? Your hands are at the bottom of your steering wheel and you want the trailer to go to the right or to the passenger side. I prefer to say passenger side and driver's side because right and left can get a little confusing. So there's absolutely no confusion if you use those two terms. So if your hands are at the bottom of the wheel, you want the back of the trailer to go towards the passenger side, then you turn with your right hand, which goes up, right? Going to the right, and that's the direction the trailer is going to go. If you want the trailer to go to the driver's side or to the left, you're going to take your left hand and turn the wheel from bottom towards the top to the left. So it eliminates that need to think about, okay, if I turn, the truck's going to go this way and the trailer's going to go that way. It just makes it easier. It really kind of gets rid of that learning curve, and you don't ever have to make that translation in your brain of them going opposite directions. So that's my tip that I learned from my husband that I wanted to pass along to you. I think it's valuable. And then the spotter will watch, and as the driver's backing in, you want to stay, you're going to have to, it's kind of a dynamic job, so you're going to be moving around. You're going to be watching both sides. You're going to be looking at the top. But if you give those directions to the driver, it just is very clear, either driver's side or passenger side. And then you also may need to watch the front of the truck, because besides having a sight that's big enough for your trailer to fit into, you have to consider the maneuvering space for the tow vehicle. Because, you know, if you have, say you have a 43-foot fifth wheel and you've got a long bed dually, that's long, and that requires a little wider, bigger maneuvering area to back in if you're not just backing, you know, at that easy, you know, 45-degree angle off the road into the space. If it's a 90, it's a little trickier. So I've actually seen somebody, when you normally would come in and the sight you're going to back into is on the driver's side, and you pull past it and then you start backing in and the driver can see that whole side of the trailer. I watched somebody try to get in. It was a tight space because there was a dumpster across the street from his site. And so he was just too long to be able to maneuver to really get into the spot. And then there were some trees on one side of it. So he ended up pulling out, going around, and coming back from the other approach. So the site was actually on the passenger side, and, you know, pulled past it and then began his back in approach. Got in much easier. So you have to kind of keep an open mind and be adaptable to the conditions that you're working with. And if you have, so that access, when you're reading descriptions of sites and that, and they give you the size of the site, they never really say, but, you know, right across the street from there is a huge dumpster. You know, it's going to affect your maneuvering ability. They don't tell you that. So, and I've even literally had a description say level, and I arrived there and it's at night, right? It's nowhere near level. It's the side of a hill. Like, I'm not kidding you. There was no way we could level. So we had to go someplace else for the night. But, so you can't totally trust what you read in the descriptions for the campgrounds. So get a visual on it when you get there and assess whether it's doable or not, and what adjustments you might have to make, including maneuvering the tow vehicle. So the spotter may have to, if there's a stump, a tree stump or a rock or something that the driver can't see, the spotter may need to go to the front of the truck and make sure that they're clearing that obstacle while they're backing up. We don't want to forget about that, you know, because when you're in a truck that's up high, it's hard to see what's down right next to you. You just can't see. So that's an important job. And so giving those directions as they're backing in, that they need to go towards the driver's side or towards the passenger side, it's very clear. And then you can use hand signals as well, right? And that might be helpful. The cell phones work great, but if you don't have a way to verbally communicate, definitely use the hand signals. And I just use fingers pointing one way or the other, and and hand up to stop. And it just makes life a little easier having help getting in if it's a area with obstacles and tight space. Not everywhere has really spacious campgrounds. In addition to making sure that you're going to, so you have to know the depth of your slide, and making sure that you're positioned where you're going to either clear over the top of it, or it's behind your slide, or to the side of it, but with room. And then leveling side to side. We used to use, because you do that first, you level side to side. We used to use just a 2 or 3 foot construction level, and it works, because we don't have auto leveling, and there's a difference between stabilizers and levelers, and that's important to know as well. I have a Facebook post on that situation that happened not too long ago, so check that out. I invested in a Level Mate Pro, and I'm so glad I did. It just makes it easier. It's you mount it inside your trailer, and it gives you directions on how to do that, and it takes some effort, but once it's done, it's done. And then you download an app on your phone, and you connect via Bluetooth with the Level Mate Pro, and a picture comes up, and it shows you, it's like a sky down view, and it shows you which side needs to come up, and then if it's level front to back. So you do the side to side first, and we use Anderson levelers, and they work great, but only to a certain discrepancy, which is probably maybe 4 inches. If it's more than 4 inches off side to side, you might have to add a block under that, or just use 2x6s to level side to side. And then once you're level side to side, then you can level front to back. So the Level Mate Pro is a great gadget. Bonus there, guys, to get one of those if you don't have auto leveling. So that whole process is just takes practice, and even when you're very comfortable doing it, you always have to be alert to what is around you. And I was actually at a Sun RV resort, and I was outside, and I saw a rig pulling in. It was a big DRV Mobile Suites fifth wheel, and it was coming into a pull through, but those sights weren't angled, so it really wasn't a big enough sight for that rig to start with. But worse than that was, so they're pulling through, and there's a passenger in there, but there's nobody spotting. They're both staying in the cab of the truck. So I noticed they were coming, and I looked down and continued doing what I was doing, and then I hear this horrible crunch. It was really loud, and I was just like, oh man, that's not good. And I looked up, and so they hit, there was a tree on each side of the site, and on the passenger front cap, they came into contact with a big branch, like a big thick branch of the tree. And then they got out, and they kind of looked, and they were assessing what to do next, and they decided to, they needed to back up, which they did. But when they backed up, that whole section that contacted the tree just popped out, so they had this big gaping hole in at the passenger side of the front cap, which was, I'm sure, a really expensive fix. And it was completely preventable, totally preventable, if the passenger had gotten out and was spotting the driver. So those things, you see those things happen fairly often, and they're preventable, and it's a matter of really being aware of your surroundings, having a spotter, paying attention, having good communication, and just stop and figure out what's the best way to do it if you're getting close to hitting something. To have somebody there and not spotting, it's just a shame, because that was something that the spotter could have caught and told them to stop. And nobody likes to have an accident like that. Nobody does. So have a spotter, take your time, communicate, try not to get frustrated, because trying to be in a rush or getting frustrated, more stuff goes wrong. It just really does. That's kind of Murphy's Law. So arrive in the daylight, take your time, have good communication, and it will really make your experience better than being rushed and and getting distracted and not really watching closely what you're doing. Always be aware what you have to do and stay focused. Don't get distracted. Be very methodical about what you're doing. Finish what you start before you move on to the next thing. Those are all ways to limit accidents and oopsies happening. And sometimes they're still going to happen, but then just don't beat yourself up about it and finish up, move on, and get it fixed, when you get back. So the important thing is to have a good time. And that's my goal. Help people to have a great experience RVing, because it really is an amazing way to see the country. Thank you so much for tuning in today to RV Advisors All Things RV Podcast. Please join us again next week for more RV education, resources, adventures, and interesting people. Until then, wishing you amazing adventures, safe travels, and I hope to see you on the road.